Hey everybody, Mark Bates here. Today I wanted to just quickly show you what it's like to use the Buffalo Plugins plugin to create a new plugin. And to do that, I thought we would convert the Buffalo Goth plugin to use both the new Buffalo Plugins generator as well as Jenny, the new package we've been working on to improve code generators for not just Buffalo, but for any Go projects. So it should be fun. I haven't done this yet. We'll see what happens here. I have Buffalo plugins installed, but it's just a matter of running github.com/go Buffalo plugins, and then you're kind of off to the races. So let's look at, I'm just in a root directory here. As you can see, it's just my Go path and then github.com/go Buffalo. And in case you see me use the B alias, by the way, that's just alias to Buffalo because obviously I type it a lot. But I will do my best to try and type Buffalo all the time. With the plugin installed, you can see that there is a Buffalo plugin. It says generates a new Buffalo plugin. So if we say Buffalo G plugin, get some help here, we can see that there's a bunch of flags here, and you see it'll generate github.com/foo/buffalo-bar, whatever we kind of give it here. So it's going to generate a full package for us, kind of out of the gate here. We've got a bunch of stuff. We've got, you can change the author's name, otherwise it defaults to your kind of source computer, what's on your computer. Dry run lets us run the generator without creating any files or running commands. We'll see that in just a second. Force will delete the target directory if it exists. This is useful if you're just trying things out and seeing what happens. License, you can choose any one of those licenses that are listed there. The default is the MIT license. And you can also change the short name of your package. So, for example, if I was to do Buffalo Bar, the short name would be bar. I believe, yes, for my package. Okay, and then finally, with Gen creates a generator plugin. So let's do all that, and this time we'll say github.com go Buffalo Buffalo Goth. Now, what's interesting is I don't actually have to do the Buffalo dash there. I could just do that. And the plugin will do the correct thing and add the Buffalo dash there because that is required by the plugin system. But we're going to do just Buffalo Goth. We'll do with Gen and -D. Let's do a dry run and see what happens. So there we go. So this is what will get printed out, will get written to our file system or commands that will get run. So for example, here's where our license will live, and here's what that license will look like. Here's what the available command would be, and you can see there is a generator already set up there. There's kind of a default generator ready to go, and a few other things, and we could go through all this here, but we won't. I'll let you look through that on your own. Instead, we're actually going to run it for real. So there we go. Now that created, as you can see, a whole bunch of files, including a whole bunch of Go files, and put them all in the correct place in my Go path. Okay, so here is my new Buffalo Goth project. And real quick, let's run through what we got generated for us. So the CMD folder, that's where our commands are going to run, all of our executables. We have our available command here, which is what Buffalo uses to find out what commands are available on your command, in your plugin. So we've got the generate command is already set up. Here is the generate command itself. And as you can see, it's already has quite a few things happening in it. For example, we're setting up a new runner. In Jenny, we have this concept of runners, where runners are kind of environments in which you're running your generators. So a wet runner will write files to the operating system, will execute commands, whereas a dry runner, which is what we did the first time we ran it, just echoes that stuff back out to the console. So right off the bat, you can see it's nice and easy to kind of set up Jenny to do these things like dry runs kind of out of the box. Next, we're calling into this Goth package, passing in options to it, and we'll look at those in just a second. Finally, we're running gofmt on our entire package. We've added that. That's a generator we can add. And then finally, we actually run everything together. So a runner can run many generators at once. So what it'll do, it's going to, when we run this, it'll use whatever runner we choose, whether the default runner is wet or the dry runner. Then it's going to execute the goth generator in that environment. And then finally, it's going to execute gofmt as well in that environment. So let's dig into this goth new here, and that actually lives in Jenny/goth. And if we open that up, here's that generator. So it takes a pointer to some options, which are currently an empty struct, so you can fill in what options you need. And new on this package here, we'll return a new generator, or an error. There is one here. That's more of a convention. It's not required to return an error. I just do it because I'm future-proofing my own APIs, because this may well return an error later. By default, what happens is Jenny will, your default generated generator, so in this case the goth generator, will add a box of templates using Packer, and you can see there is the templates there, and an example.txt file that's in there that will get generated. And then this, by default, will also run through Plush. So that's basically our entire system that was generated. We have one more folder here, and this is just called goth, and that contains version. And that folder is really meant for you to call into with, other extensions to Buffalo. These are kind of things that people would import into their applications, as opposed to, say, this command, right? They would import goth.version, for example, into their application. So if you had other libraries or tools that would go along with this, middleware, that sort of stuff, that's where that would live, would be in that package there. Okay, so let's take, and we'll do a little go install here of Buffalo Goth. Fantastic. And I'm going to go to my trusty Coke application, which is clean. And I'm going to say Buffalo G Goth help here. So this is my new Goth plugin. I removed the old one. And you can see that's my help. And if I were to run it with the -d flag, we could see what would happen, and all we'd get is a file called example.txt that says hello from goth. But at least we know it works. Okay, so we have this kind of working goth generator here. Let's open up the old plugin, which is what I have here, and take a look. We'll start with the goth command here. So we've got a quick little error check, so let's bring that in to our goth command as well, which currently, oops, sorry, I meant our generate command. My bad. There we go. So we're saying that we need at least one argument. That seems realistic. Okay. And then we're calling into this new thing here, which is obviously what the previous generator, and it was using Maker, which was an old package we had that we're now trying to move away from, obviously, in favor of Jenny. So it looks like if we go back to here, we do need to provide to Maker the arguments that were given. So those would be the providers, obviously. Now, this is one of the reasons why we want to move away from Maker. Using these kind of maps of just kind of anything goes isn't very useful. So let's open up the options here for us, and let's actually add something here. And we'll say providers is a slice of string. Here we go. And then very simply, we'll say ops equals generator.options, ops.providers equals args. Okay, so that's our command. Let's install that again. And then let's run it again dry and see what we get. Fantastic. So we at least get an error. So I'm going to say Twitter. Okay, so it works again. Okay, and so let's check and see if there's anything else on that API. And there are no flags or anything like that. So fantastic. We've at least completed the command part of that migration, right? So now we can move into the actual kind of fun stuff, which is implementing the actual Goth code here. Now it looks like there are some templates. There's auth Go template here. Now this is using the Go templating system, not the Buffalo templating system. So that's fine, or not Plush rather. So that's fine. We can use that instead. Jenny is prepared for that sort of thing here. So it looks like we've got a pretty straightforward template here. What we really need is the providers is all this template actually needs. So let's actually remove example.txt. We don't need that anymore. But we will keep that, but we don't need Plush anymore. We can just use the one that ships with Jenny for using Go templates. Let me just set up here. I don't use the Go templates all that often. So there you go. So template transformer. I think that's what we're looking for, is the template transformer. So let's do that here. We want a template transformer. First, do we need any helpers? I don't think we do, but let's hold on to that here for a second because the template transformer does require that. And then it was Go tools, template transformer. Then it was our data and helpers. Okay, so we don't have any data. That would make sense. So our data, I believe, is a map of string to interface. And in that we need our packages, which we know we can get from, sorry, not packages, rather providers. There we go. And it looks like this one only takes one. Okay, so now we have, oops, sorry, there we go. We got the wrong one imported. Fantastic, that's a little bit better in error. T is declared and not used, yes, so let's change this from, sorry, instead of changing it, rather, we just need to add that transformer. There we go. Okay, so sorry for that. I don't use Go templates a lot because Plush is pretty awesome. But that's what we had in the original one, so we're gonna stick with that here. So what I've done again is I've switched basically from using Plush to using the Go templating system here. Okay, now I think is a good time to start writing a test for our generator here. So let's create a new test here. I'm just gonna create a new test file. There we go. And we'll call it a test goth. There we go. Now we know we're gonna get a generator here. And for that, we're going to need some options. And the options we're going to pass it are providers. And that's going to be a slice of strings. And we're going to say GitHub and Twitter. Now let's make sure that there are no errors. Okay, so now we have our generator here. Let's create a new runner. And for this, we can just, I find using the dry runner for Jenny is the easiest thing to do for testing. And there we go. So we can create a new dry runner, give it a blank context, and then we can add our generator to our runner. So that's kind of how runners work. We just keep adding generators to them until finally we execute them here. So which is what we're going to do right now. So we'll say run.run will execute all my generators, and then I can get a set of results from the generators. And those are going to tell me two things. It's going to tell me how many commands and how many files were run. So first we'll start with the length of commands should be 0, and the length of files should be 1, I believe. So if we run our test, it is not, and let's figure out why here. Oops. We got a nice panic. Let's figure out what that panic is. Function downcase not defined. We are missing helper functions. So we'll say downcase equals strings to lower. And I imagine if we're missing downcase, we are also missing upcase. Okay, now let's try that. There we go. Okay, so now we've at least made sure that it runs successfully, and we know we've processed 0 commands in 1 file. So let's look at that 1 file and see what it looks like here. Oops. There we go. And we can say that first let's assert that it's the name we expect it to be, which is actions auth.go, I believe. And it is. And now let's actually read that file. So we can say io util read file, and oops, not read file, read all from the file. Again, let's assert that there's no error, and we'll do that. I'm going to change source to bytes and source to, there we go. And now I want to say r.equal. Now this is going to fail, but that's okay. We kind of expect it to fail because empty string doesn't equal anything. But it's a nice way to just get a quick look and just say, okay, yes, it does fit. The stuff is in there. So now let's actually use like a fixture or something to do that. So I've actually created a fixture here. So I'm just going to change all this, and I'm going to change this to be actual. And then I'm going to create an expected here, which will also do that. And it'll be fixtures auth.go temple here, and no error. And finally, I should be able to say r equal actual and expected. And let's see what happens there. Fantastic. Okay. So we have asserted that the file that gets generated does the thing we expect it to do, or at least looks the way we expect it to. So let's look at what else this plugin does over here. Okay, so that's the templates, and that's writing the templates here. Okay, so it looks like we need to add a few things inside of Actions app. So I'm just going to copy those over here down to here. Okay. Oops. And I'm just going to comment those out for now. That way I just know what I'm looking at here. So it looks like we're going to also touch Actions app. So now I would expect our files to go up to 2. And let's TDD this one now. So again, I'm gonna get the next file in our process list. I'm going to make sure the name is what I expect the name to be. And I'm gonna copy all this as well here. and instead of auth, I'm just going to say app to go here. Now I expect this to fail because we haven't got that far yet, and that's expected. So let's go back over here and let's add these lines here. Now there is another helper that it's going to help us with this here, and that again is on Go Tools, and that is add inside block here, and this lets us give it a file. So we're going to need a new file here. We'll call it app, and we'll go Jenny, new file, actions app.go, and it does need a reader. So we are going to have to read the file itself in order to make these changes. So our test is going to get a bit more complicated because we are going to have to create a new file first to read. So I'm going to do that off screen, and I will be back as soon as I am finished. Okay, so just as promised, off camera, I went and cleaned up the tests and did a bunch of stuff there. So let me show you what I did. First thing I actually did was I got rid of the fixtures entirely and just put them at the bottom of my temp folder here. But we will, sorry, the bottom of my tests rather itself. But let's get to that. So again, like we had before, we have creating a new generator, we're giving it GitHub and Twitter here, dry runner, we're adding our generator to it. The new change here is on runners, you can change directory, which is really nice. And what that'll actually do is you can change any directory you want, and when the function, and give it a function, and when that function returns, it will change the directory again back to where it was before you changed it. And the reason I'm doing this is because in order to do what we need to do, we need to read app.go, because that's how the generator works, right? It reads an app.go file, inserts some stuff into it, and then writes it back again. So we need to be able to do something very similar here. So we changed directory into a temp folder here. Then what we're doing is writing a very basic app.go file into into a file there, into actions app.go. And if you want to see, it's very, very simple. It's just a bare bones kind of file here, because it really just needs to be a parsable Go file for this particular in this particular format, because that's what we're doing. So anyway, so we create that file. So now it's there. Now we can run our runner. We still have two commands. We've processed two files. Again, as we were doing before, we were asserting that actions auth.go was written. We're reading it. We're asserting that it looks like it should after it's been written. Now we're doing the same thing with actions app.go. Nothing fancy there. So if we go back into Jenny here, we still have we have this run function here, which will look for actions app.go. It'll read it. It will create a new Jenny file from that information here. Matter of fact, we should change that to be path. That's probably better. And then expressions, these are things we want to insert into it. So these are like that the plugin needs to put in the correct space in app.go. And if we look at what that looks like in our expectation here, this is what we expect the file to look like after. You should see those are the 3 lines that we need to add there. So those are the expressions. Then we can call this add inside block method, and that we can just give it the file, the Jenny file. We can give it the expression to look for, the block of code to look for, and then inside that block of code, it'll take those expressions and insert them at the bottom of that block of code. So in this, it's app equals nil, and it's going to put it at the bottom of there. So again, we're still matching the same expectations that we had in the other the original plugin. And if we run this again, oops, somewhere, oh, that's Vim actually, sorry. If we run that again, that wasn't the test failure, that was just Vim saying you can't find that file. Okay, so all of our tests pass now. So let's look at what else we're doing here. It looks like we are adding an import to app.go as well. So again, we need Gothic to do that. We need to add that import, which is the Gothic import here. So we already have this we already have our app file here. So we can use that, and we can say go tools, add import, which takes a file and what packages we want to import, which is Mark Bates Gothic. Here we go. And that gives you an error, potentially. Okay, so now, if I'm correct, our tests should fail because we are not adding, we have not added that to our test expectation. And I was correct. So let's go up here and add that to our app after. So github.com, oops, get the right package, Mark Bates Gothic. And now let's make sure we've got that correct. Looks like we have an extra space. Okay, there we go. Don't you love trying to make these things work? Fantastic. Okay, so we now have Gothic installed, and it looks like the last thing we have is a go get command that needs to be run. So again, let's TDD this here, and let's remove that line, and we'll push it down here. So we'll kind of create a new section now for testing commands. Action, so we're going to run at least one command. We're going to run at least a go get to make sure you have Gothic installed. So let's do res commands 0. And if we say equal, it should equal go get github.com goth/... is what we expect to see from our command. Okay, now this will fail because we haven't actually run any commands. So let's do that. There is, I believe, no, there is not a go get on there, but that's fine. So what we can do here instead is we can just add a command. So we can say g, and then we just add a command onto our generator. So exec command go get and github.com Mark Bates goth ... I'm just going to make one small change here and say go tools dot, or is it Jenny go bin here. Okay, and that's going to get what you expect the go binary to be here. Oops, did I do something wrong? What am I missing here? Yes, I think I meant to do that. Okay. So now let's run our test again and see how we're looking. Fantastic, look at that. Okay, now let's install it. Let's go back to our Coke app here and let's just run this with a dry runner here and see what happens. Wow, okay. So as we can see, very last thing that happened was a go get got run. Go get got run. This looks like our actions app file, which looks like it has the information we need where we need it. We can also see that it does have Gothic in there too, which is fantastic. And everything else looks good. Oh, here's our auth.go file. Oh, we have Twitter, but where is... Oh, because that's all we've added, because all we did was Twitter in this example. I was like, whoa, what happened to Facebook or GitHub? Let's do it with GitHub and let's see what happens now. So again, you can see Gothic. There you go, app. Everything looks like it should. So I think we're almost ready to pull the trigger on this one here. and see what happens. So let's actually do that. Let's try and do both Twitter and GitHub and see what happens. So as you can see, it generated the files in my application, and then it did a go get for me. So if we start my application here, the application compiles, so that's good. If we go to 127.3000, we've got callbacks, looking good. And just to be sure, let me just try this out here. Now, before I do that, I just want to say that I do have the correct environment variables and OAuth keys with GitHub and Twitter or whatever to make it work with 127 locally. So you need to make sure you set those things up. Whenever I talk about OAuth, it's always a really difficult setup process. Understand that I have already set it up, so there was a lot of work done by me a long time ago to make this easy for me in terms of getting these OAuth keys and stuff to work. So please don't complain and say it doesn't work right out of the gate. Well, you got to do a little work to set up your own keys on GitHub and stuff. But anyway, lots of articles about that. Let's just do straight up make an auth call through GitHub. You see it comes back, and boom, there is my GitHub information. So we have got a successful recreation of the first part of this plugin here to make it work as it did before. Okay, so off screen, I went and created a new package called auth under Jenny here. And this is because the other Buffalo Goth plugin had an auth generator. It would generate a user and all the same Goth stuff that you had before. So I created a new auth directory here, just very similar to our Goth one, almost identical. They do have different auth go templates. I copied the one from the original implementation, and this is what it looks like here. I really haven't modified it at all. The only thing I did change was line 7, where I do app.models package. And that is because I'm able to use the meta package from Buffalo to understand the application, and it gives me some helpful things like where the models package is. So let's talk about this generator here, because, and by the way, I've got the test passing. I'm not finished with this generator yet, so but I just wanted to bring you up to speed where I am here. I do have all the tests passing, but what I want to show you here is I'm not actually creating a generator this time. Instead, I'm actually creating a group. And a group is basically a fancy way of saying a bunch of generators, is really all it is here. So the reason I do that is I create a new group, and then I immediately add the original Goth generator we just wrote to it. So now I'm pulling in another generator, right? And I'm going to build on top of that, because that's all Goth auth really is, right? It's the basic Goth stuff we had originally, but then we're going to add some user authentication stuff on top of it. So that's what we do here. We create the new Goth generator, then we add it to our group. Now we can create our new auth generator. So we're going to pull in any templates from our templates directory here. Our template func map hasn't changed, downcase, upcase. And then our data is our providers and our app. And then finally, we're going to run everything through the Go template transformer. And like I said, if I run all the tests should pass. If I do a go install of this here, I'm just going to close down a few of these windows here. My bad. If I run this, the Goth one, this is the Goth one here. If I run Goth auth instead, you can see that I now get a lot more stuff here. See, this is what gets generated. I'm still getting the Twitter stuff. The models directory was pulled in correctly, but we're still missing a few things. We haven't actually generated the model, nor have we added all of this kind of crazy stuff that needs to get added here. So let's look at what needs to get done next. And the next thing it looks like needs to get done is command. So let's add that command here. And I'm going to just strip all that off. We'll call it CMD. There we go. And then we could just add that command to our generator. So now my tests are going to fail because instead of having instead of having one command, we should now have two commands that were executed, and that was correct. The reason why we're seeing two commands here is, remember, the first command had a call to go get. The original Gothic was calling, the original Goth plugin was adding this call to go get, so we don't need to call it again here. We can see everything is working correctly here. If we get res commands in the second spot, we can again assert that it is equal to Buffalo DB generate model user name email nulls string provider ID, and then we could just join those args up, and let's see, there we go. Okay, so now it's going to generate all the model information for us as part of this generator here. But I believe there are still a few pieces that we still need to do here, and that's all of this stuff here. Now, it looks like this is different than the original generator, right? This is going to be different code. So we're going to have to figure out how we can deal with that. Okay, so I went ahead and did this off camera. So basically all I did here was I added a run function here to my generator, and this will get run at runtime. And it takes a function that gets a runner, so we can access things on the runner. We open up the file, we open up Actions app, get a new Jenny file from it here, and then we basically just kind of, again, loop through the lines here. We find the line we want, we replace it with everything we want it to replace it with here, which is what I'm doing here. We write the line back. I can get rid of that print line. We create a new Jenny file based off of this new in-memory file that we've created. And then we can call the runner, giving it our file, and our runner will then run it through any transformers like Plush or GoTemplating, whatever, before finally either writing it to disk or printing it out to the console, in the case of a dry runner. Now all my tests pass. I've made sure they are correct here, and you can see this is my before app. My before app is actually different. This caught me out a little bit here. Because by the time it comes into the auth generator part of it here, it's already been transformed by Goth. So this is actually our starting point here, which is fine. And so you can see that's where our starting point is. And then here is our starting point. Here's where it becomes in the end. We still have the auth group. And then, we've set up a couple things on the app itself. We make sure to skip the authorized middleware for the home handler. We create our new wrapper function around the auth handler. We then add it to the auth at a couple different endpoints, add middleware, and then finally our callback at the end. So, actually, we don't, yes. Yeah, that was already obviously in the file. So that means now all of our tests pass. We still have a little bit more work to do. So now we just need to try it and see if it does what we expect it to do. So let's see. It looks like it did. It created a few files for us. It created our models. And so start here. I'm going to go to auth, 127 auth, GitHub. There we go. Just must have had a bad session cookie. As you can see, I've been logged in. So there we go. We have converted the Buffalo Goth plugin to use Jenny, and to also use the new Buffalo plugins paradigm. And we have it fully tested now, as you can see. We can run our tests here against it, and yeah, we should be fine with race conditions, hopefully. We have this beautiful little package now that is ready to go, that fully implements what we had before, but in a brand new kind of tidy, clean way. So by the time you watch this, I will have added all of this I will have pushed all this to the actual Buffalo Goth repo, so you'll be able to enjoy the fruits of all of this. But that's it. I know this was a long video, but we hopefully learned about the Buffalo Plugins plugin, and started learning about Jenny and how we can write new Buffalo plugins. And, in about roughly a half hour or so, we took an existing Buffalo plugin and converted it to this new architecture and with Jenny, and able to write really nice comprehensive tests to assure that everything did kind of what we expect it to do before we actually even try it on our file system. And we get really nice things like I said, the dry runner and stuff like that for free. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this. I really want to see what kind of great generators and other Buffalo plugins you write for deployment and for whatever. If you're interested in seeing a deployment one, check out Buffalo Heroku, which is also written in Jenny using the new Buffalo plugins system as well. So another great little resource there, and you can see how that was done. But please, I'd love to see your PRs to Jenny, and obviously to any of the Buffalo projects that use generators. I'd love to see them get converted, and it is part of a big push. So hopefully this video inspires you. And that's it now. I hope this helps. This video was brought to you by Gopher Guides. If you're an organization, conference, or user group that is looking for Go training, please visit gopherguides.com. All training is custom designed to match your educational needs.